Just before our honeymoon, I received a warning about infidelity. It happened as my wife and I were heading to the train station. My mobile phone received a text message that read, "Alistair Banister, if you don't stop pursuing my girlfriend Audrey, you'll regret it. I'll hang banners outside your workplace and broadcast your affair with a loudspeaker for everyone to hear." To be honest, I was quite baffled when I saw this message. My name is Barnaby, so this text was clearly sent to the wrong person. However, my wife's name happens to be Audrey Holbrook. Although the message was misdirected, it still made me feel rather uncomfortable. I was about to tell this bloke that someone else was responsible for his green hat, but just then my wife urged me to hurry out the door. So I let it go, grabbed our luggage, and took my wife to catch a taxi. Ding! Story Shots reminds you to click the subscribe button at the bottom right corner to read the full novel. My wife and I got married last week and were planning to go to Thailand for our honeymoon. I was in a great mood until this text message ruined it. Thankfully, my wife knows how to cheer me up. She told me lots of interesting stories about Thailand that had me chuckling. Beautiful, great figure, emotionally intelligent. I'm truly blessed to have found such an amazing wife. After we boarded the plane, it was nap time. My wife was a bit sleepy, so she had a snack and dozed off wrapped in a blanket. I was still feeling energetic and planned to watch a film before resting. Just then, that unknown number sent another text. "Alistair, I'm at the entrance to the BBC. If you don't reply to my texts, I'm about to broadcast your glorious deeds." I found it quite amusing. I'm not even from Oxford, let alone work at that place. These messages are pointless. I wanted to share this with my wife, but seeing her sleeping so peacefully, I didn't want to disturb her. The sender persisted, sending 2 more photos. The first showed a short, stout man with his arm around a tall woman's waist, entering a hotel in Oxford. The second seemed to be from CCTV footage, showing the couple walking into a hotel room. The woman wore a mask and coat, obscuring her face, but the man's face was clearly visible. I opened the 2 photos and saved them, planning to share the gossip with friends later. Another text arrived. "Well, the evidence is irrefutable. Still want to deny it? You're a leader at work. If I release these photos, your career is over." I was speechless. This guy should at least verify who he's accusing before trying to catch a cheater. It really soured my mood. Wanting to rile him up, I texted back, "This only proves I went to a hotel with a woman. What evidence is there of who it is? What if it's my own wife?" There was silence for a moment, then 3 more photos arrived, showing hotel check-in records for February 6th, March 7th, and April 6th. The name and ID information all said Alistair Banister. He quickly followed up, "Let me tell you, I found records of all the times you and Audrey have stayed at hotels this past year. I'm not sharing those photos now to give you some leeway. Come out of your office now. We need to talk face to face." I laughed to myself. Leaving some leeway? This guy's mental state after being cheated on is impressive. I was about to lock my phone when I noticed those 3 dates looked familiar. On February 6th and March 7th, my wife had actually been visiting family in Oxford. She's originally from there, so she goes back once a month. And the woman's figure in the photos did look quite similar to my wife's. The more I looked, the more uneasy I felt. Could this be my wife? I began to have doubts and decided to keep the person on the other end calm while trying to extract more information. I texted, "Stay calm. I'm away on a business trip and not at the office. Let me know if you have any requests." The reply came, "I have only one demand: stay away from Audrey. She's my girlfriend." How romantic, still insisting on a relationship even in this situation. As I was pondering how to respond, my wife sleeping beside me suddenly stirred. I quickly switched to a different screen on my phone. My wife removed her eye mask and got up to use the loo. I made way for her to pass. Only after she returned, put her eye mask back on, and fell asleep again did I reopen the text conversation. The other person had angrily sent several messages, with the last one reading, "Alistair, reply immediately. Do you want to be socially ruined?" I thought for a moment and typed out a message. "Mate, I've dated quite a few women named Audrey. You might have got the wrong end of the stick here. How can you be sure the one I met was your girlfriend? Do you actually have any photos? Ones where she's not wearing a mask. The person on the other end didn't seem to think they had the wrong person at all and continued to interrogate me. No way, it's definitely my girlfriend you've been messing around with. I don't care if you're really away on business or not. I'm giving you 1 hour, either we meet face to face or we talk on the phone. Otherwise, I'm coming to your workplace and making sure everyone there knows what's going on. Although I wasn't particularly bothered about him causing a scene at my workplace, I urgently needed to confirm whether the Audrey he was talking about was actually my wife, Audrey Holbrook. So I went to the bathroom and called him, keeping my voice low. As soon as he picked up, I spoke first. Listen, mate, who exactly is this Audrey you're on about? You must have got the wrong person. I heard a voice seething with anger on the other end. Stop denying it. Audrey has 2 small moles under her right eye. I've already got clear photos of you two going into a hotel together. My heart tightened. My wife did indeed have moles under her eye. The angry voice continued. The only reason I'm not sending you the photos is to protect Audrey's reputation. A scumbag like you could never understand how I feel about her. We've been together for 4 years. If she hadn't just found a job in Bristol, we'd be talking about marriage by now. My head was spinning. Audrey Holbrook had been my university classmate. We dated for a few years during uni, then tried long distance for a year after graduating before breaking up. 3 years later, she decided to move to Bristol for work, where I was living. We got back in touch, quickly rekindled our old flame and got married. Everything this person was saying matched up perfectly with my wife's situation. I took a deep breath and decided to continue fishing for information. Look, I'm a married man too. I can stop seeing Audrey from now on. But you need to send me all the photos you've taken and guarantee you won't share them with anyone else. The other end was silent for a moment. I can send them to you, but you must promise not to share them. Audrey is going to be my wife, and if these get out, her reputation will be ruined. When you're speechless to the extreme, you want to laugh. I let out a cold chuckle. Don't worry, you have my work address, don't you? If I leak them, you can always come and make a scene at my workplace. After a brief silence, he sent over a compressed file containing numerous secretly taken photos. I hung up the phone and examined the photos after unzipping the file. They showed a short, fat, balding man with a woman in various hotel rooms. And that woman was none other than my wife, Audrey Holbrook. There were photos of them walking arm in arm on the street, and others of them entering hotel rooms together. Bloody hell. No wonder she had to go back every month. She was having an affair. If she was going to cheat, couldn't she at least find someone better than me? This guy is short, fat, and barely has any hair left. What does she see in him? I was burning with rage, wanting to rush out and have a huge row with Audrey right then and there. I splashed water on my face from the bathroom tap several times, eventually managing to calm down. It's all my fault for being so naive, getting married without knowing the full picture. Now our marriage is a legal fact. The urgent matter at hand is to quickly deal with our assets. Otherwise, if she initiates a divorce later, she'll be entitled to half of my property, and I'll truly be the fool. Realizing this, I immediately sent a few text messages to my lawyer friend, asking him to arrange some matters for me. Originally, my parents had planned to transfer a few commercial properties to me after the wedding, allowing me to live comfortably off the rental income. But now, that plan needs to be halted immediately. I'm not very familiar with the law, but if these properties become marital assets, and Audrey gets half in a divorce, I'd truly want to die. After sending a few messages to the lawyer and making a couple of phone calls, I wanted to continue making arrangements, but someone was already kicking the bathroom door. I had no choice but to come out. Back at my seat, I deleted the messages from the lawyer and saved the chat history with that lovesick puppy infatuated with Audrey to my cloud drive, locking it securely. I sat down and glanced at Audrey's delicate face beside me, feeling my anger rising. This seemingly innocent person had already made me a cuckold twice over. To avoid her noticing my fury, I put on an eye mask, pretending to rest. In reality, I couldn't sleep at all and was piecing together the sequence of events. After graduation, Audrey had found a boyfriend in Bristol. A year later, she broke up with me. 3 years after that, she came to London and we had a whirlwind marriage. During our marriage, she had been returning to Bristol every month to have an affair with Alistair. Meanwhile, that lovesick fool still thought Audrey was only temporarily in London and they could marry in the future, so he angrily messaged her adulterous lover, wanting to cause a scene. That's roughly how things stood. I felt like the pathetic protagonist of some trashy novel. If this had happened right after I graduated, I would have certainly caused a huge commotion and made sure all of Audrey's family and friends saw those incriminating photos of her affairs. But now, the most important thing was to get a painless divorce first, then consider revenge later. I assessed my situation. Though my salary was high, my expenses were too, so I hadn't saved much. The house we lived in after marriage was fully paid for by my parents, though registered in both our names, so it didn't count as marital property. We had only placed an order for a new electric car, which hadn't been delivered yet. I'd already arranged for the lawyer to cancel it and refund the money to my parents, finding a way to frame it as me repaying them. Fortunately, we hadn't held the wedding ceremony or given the bride price yet. Otherwise, my family would have completely lost face among our local relatives and friends. After sorting through the current situation, my anger subsided somewhat. The next step was to play act well during this 5-day trip to Thailand, buying time for the lawyer. Afterwards, I'd find a way to teach Audrey a lesson. The train arrived at the station, and we transferred to a plane. After the plane landed in Bangkok, I put on a forced smile, woke up Audrey Holbrook, and led her through customs. We made our way to the pre-booked hotel, exhausted from the long journey. I was fuming inside and hadn't rested well on the plane. After a quick tidy-up, I went straight to bed. In my half-asleep state, I heard Audrey on the phone with someone, vaguely saying "don't rush" and "soon," though I couldn't make out what it was about. The next day, I woke up just after 6, while Audrey was still fast asleep. I left the room and went to the hotel restaurant, finding a secluded corner to call my solicitor back home and check on the progress. Just after I finished the call, around 7, I saw another message from that sycophant from Greenville. "Alistair Banister. You bastard. You actually resigned? Giving up your civil service job just to compete with me for Audrey? I can't believe I was fooled yesterday. If I hadn't double-checked today, I would have been completely duped by you." He then sent a photo of someone entering an airport, saying, "You think escaping to Siam for a holiday will keep you away from me? I'm on my way there right now. Just you wait and see what I'll do to you." I jolted in shock. Alistair Banister is in Siam? I suddenly understood who Audrey was talking to on the phone yesterday. She was speaking to that scoundrel. The phrases "foreign land," "illicit lovers," and "sinister plot" immediately entered my mind. It's over. I'm about to become the next victim of infidelity. Then I remembered our next destination in Siam, Udong National Park. This famous Siamese national park is known for its steep cliffs. If Audrey and her lover were to work together to push me off a cliff there, disguising it as an accidental fall, I drew in a sharp breath. I thought Audrey only wanted my money, but it turns out she wants my life. With this in mind, I immediately made up my mind not to leave the hotel. I wasn't familiar with Thailand, and the scoundrel had certainly scouted the area in advance. Once we left the hotel for an unfamiliar place, who knows what methods he might use against me. I got some ice from the restaurant and found a secluded spot to cool my forehead. Then I returned to the hotel room. By this time, Audrey had just woken up and was about to call to ask where I'd gone. Holding my head, I said, "I just went down for breakfast and wanted to get some fresh air on the balcony, but then I felt dizzy. I think I'm coming down with a cold." Audrey felt my forehead. "Oh no, you do have a slight fever. Can you still manage, darling? We're supposed to fly to Padang National Park today." I laughed bitterly to myself. Bloody hell, she can't wait even a moment. But I controlled my expression and said, "I don't think we can go today. Let's rest for now and see how I feel tomorrow." Then I collapsed onto the bed and said weakly, "I'm absolutely exhausted. I need to sleep for a bit. I pulled the covers over myself, burying my head so Audrey couldn't see my face. She fell for it. I heard the bathroom door open, though I wasn't sure if she was actually using the toilet or calling her lover. While she was in the bathroom, I quickly gathered my passport and other documents and hid them under the bed to prepare for the worst-case scenario. After that, I continued pretending to sleep with my head covered. Audrey soon came out of the bathroom. I heard the sound of water boiling. There was a clinking of bottles and jars, followed by the sound of a spoon stirring in a ceramic mug. Soon after, I felt Audrey nudge me. She pulled back the covers and said, "Darling, take some cold medicine first. You'll feel better faster if you do." I took the porcelain cup she handed me, about to drink the medicine, when I suddenly frowned. "What kind of cold medicine is this? It smells so bitter." She hesitated for a moment, then quickly smiled and said, "Darling, you're delirious from the fever. Your sense of smell must be off. This is just the usual cold remedy we always take." I shook my head. "It smells far too bitter. Go to the hotel reception and get some sugar. Otherwise, I won't be able to drink it at all." Seeing my firm stance, she had no choice but to go out to find sugar. While she was gone, I quickly poured the cup of medicine into the toilet and flushed it away. I boiled a fresh kettle of water and mixed a packet of real cold medicine. When she returned, I took the hotel-packaged sugar from her hand, poured it into the medicine, stirred it with a spoon, and then drank it all in one go. After finishing, I continued to lie in bed with my head covered, pretending to sleep while actually listening intently to what she was doing. About 10 minutes later, she softly called my name a few times to confirm I was asleep, then immediately called her lover. "Barnaby, where are you?" "Oh, you're already in Brighton? Ah, don't even ask. He's caught a cold, so we can't go to Brighton today. Probably not until tomorrow." "Oh, don't worry. I gave him sleeping pills before calling you. He'll be out for a whole day. Won't wake up until tomorrow morning." I don't know what was said on the other end, but she started giggling like a cackling hen. She said, "Oh my, once this is all over, we'll be free. We can go wherever we want. Brighton is nothing, we could even go to Las Vegas. Since you're still in Oxford, I'll go have a few games myself today. We'll talk more when we meet tonight." After that, I heard her rummaging through the luggage, presumably looking for the pounds I had exchanged, about £1,000 worth. Soon after, I heard the sound of her opening the door and leaving. I waited about 5 minutes before getting out of bed and immediately started searching on my phone. She mentioned Las Vegas, so she must be going gambling. Since she still needs to keep an eye on me, she won't go far. There are only 2 or 3 casinos catering to Chinese tourists in this area. It shouldn't be hard to find her. I left the hotel, exchanged more pounds for local currency at the bank, bought some clothes to blend in with the locals, and donned a mask and sunglasses. With a walking stick in hand, I slowly made my way down the street. There were 2 casinos within a few hundred meters of each other, and Audrey Holbrook was likely to be in one of them. The money I had left in my suitcase amounted to only about £1,000. If she wanted to gamble for a day, she certainly wouldn't start with high-stakes games. Most likely, she would begin with something like slot machines. I slipped into one of the casinos and searched the slot machine area, but didn't find her. I quickly changed direction to the other casino, and sure enough, I spotted Audrey Holbrook sitting in front of a slot machine. It was just after 9 in the morning, and the casino wasn't very crowded yet, making it easy to find her. I noticed she had placed her phone aside, completely focused on the slot machine screen, as if she had forgotten everything else in the world. I found 4 or 5 beggars nearby and, using a translation app, told them, "Come with me to ask that woman for money. Even if we don't get any, I'll give each of you £1. They barely understood but followed me to approach Audrey Holbrook for money. We swarmed around her, irritating her as she tried to concentrate on gambling. She began calling for the casino security. The beggars quickly ran away, and I took the opportunity to snatch Audrey's phone. I hadn't previously known her lock screen password, but she liked to use the same password for everything. I remembered her computer password from when I'd helped her with some IT issues. I entered the computer password, and sure enough, it unlocked her phone. However, I didn't have time to go through her chat history as the casino security was already rushing over. I quickly downloaded one of those apps couples use to show each other's location, set it to run by default in the background without displaying, and then hid it in a folder full of small game apps. After doing all this, I tossed the phone to one of the small beggars and ran back to the hotel. When I got back to the hotel, I downloaded the app that shows the location of couples. After logging into my account, I saw that Audrey's location was still showing at that casino. It seems those beggars couldn't outrun the casino security, and the phone was returned to its owner. This app was actually something Audrey had forced me to install when we were in a long-distance relationship because she didn't trust me. After we broke up, I only uninstalled the app without deleting my account, not realizing it would come in handy today. I used the app to monitor her location, preparing for my next move. First, I booked a new room at the hotel across the street and moved my passport and other belongings there. Then I sent a few photos to Audrey's admirer, showing the street where I was, challenging him to come and face me. After that, I went back to the room Audrey and I had initially shared. I turned on the bathroom light and tap, then stood outside to take a photo of the bathroom, making sure to capture Audrey's suitcase in the doorway. Next, I scrolled through my phone and found an old selfie of Audrey and me in a hotel room. I cropped myself out, leaving only Audrey playfully sticking out her pink tongue. I then went to a phone shop and bought 2 new mobile phones with 2 new SIM cards. I installed WhatsApp on both phones and created 2 new accounts using the new numbers. I made a WhatsApp call from one phone to the other, then put one phone on silent mode and hid it under the bed in Audrey's room. This gave me a simple monitoring system to keep track of what was happening at any time. By the time I finished all this, it was getting late. I sent Audrey a text message from my own phone. "Darling, I've woken up and I'm feeling very unwell. I've taken a taxi to the hospital nearby. Where are you?" Audrey must have been engrossed in gambling because it took her 10 minutes to notice my message. She replied, "Sweetheart, I was just downstairs buying you some food. How are you feeling now?" I quickly texted back, "The doctor says it's nothing serious, probably mild dehydration caused by a cold. I'm feeling much better after getting in 4 drip, but I need to stay here for a day. Come pick me up tomorrow evening." Audrey, "Oh no, that won't do. I'm coming to find you right now." I hastily messaged, "No, don't. I'm having severe diarrhea. Please don't come. The doctors and nurses here are very attentive. Just rest well at the hotel and come to get me tomorrow evening." After I said this, Audrey didn't insist on coming anymore. If she had, my cover would have been blown. Now all that's left is to wait for the show to begin. I was staying in the hotel across from Audrey Holbrook's, using binoculars to observe the situation at her hotel entrance. Previously, every time she returned to town, she would go see that good-for-nothing husband. Tonight she had a chance to be alone, so they were sure to meet up. From around 7 p.m., I had been closely monitoring changes in Audrey's location. Around 8 p.m., she started heading towards the hotel, after which her location barely changed. At about 8:30 p.m., I spotted that short, fat, bald adulterer appearing at the hotel entrance. I reckon Audrey had messaged him to come over. Through the listening devices I had set up in advance, I heard the sound of the adulterer entering. Shortly after he went in, I heard the sound of water splashing on the floor in the bathroom. He must have gone to take a shower. About 2 or 3 minutes later, I heard the adulterer's footsteps coming out of the bathroom, followed immediately by indescribable sounds from the 2 of them. I was burning with rage, wanting to rush over there and stab those 2 wretched cheats to death. But after just 30 seconds, I heard the adulterer cry out loudly, and then the sounds from both of them stopped. Huh? The nameless fire in my chest transformed into an inexplicable sense of amusement. How ridiculous! Just a matter of seconds, and they're trying to sneak around doing such things? But right after that, I heard the sound of a lighter in the room, followed by the dreamy voices of a man and woman. At first I didn't quite react, thinking the 2 of them had started going at it again. But listening carefully, I suddenly realized these 2 were doing hallucinogenic drugs together. I finally understood why Audrey Holbrook cheated with someone far inferior to me, and why she had to meet her lover for trysts every month when she returned to the city. It's because they were both drug-addled beasts who indulged in hallucinogens. Their relationship wasn't just based on those fleeting moments of physical intimacy. As this realization hit me, a chill ran down my spine. I'd seen similar videos online before. These women who dilute hallucinogenic drugs not only engage in wild, uninhibited behavior, but they also take no precautions whatsoever. My thoughts immediately turned to my own health. Thankfully, Audrey had always insisted I use protection when we were intimate, in an attempt to appear modest. Otherwise, I might have been in grave danger. Even so, I'll definitely need to get a full medical checkup after this. Thinking about it now, I felt somewhat relieved. It was fortunate that the besotted fool had sent that text to the wrong person, thinking I was Alistair Banister. Otherwise, I might have contracted HIV or some other disease without even knowing how I got it. At this point, I almost felt reluctant to draw the fool into this mess. But I had no choice. He needed to see the truth. Besides, it's for his own good, to show him Audrey's true nature and prevent him from falling victim to her as well. He should stop posting those pathetic messages about Audrey becoming his wife someday. So, I picked up my phone and sent the fool the photos of Audrey in the hotel bathroom, along with the playful picture of her sticking out her powdered tongue. I texted, "Who do you think you are? You actually dared to come to Siam? Audrey and I are having a grand time in our hotel room. Come if you dare. Though I bet you're not even in Siam at all." After sending the message, I kept a close watch on the hotel across the street. Since I didn't know what the fool looked like, I could only guess based on their demeanor. It wasn't long before I saw a thin young man with a backpack enter the hotel opposite. He seemed to be in a hurry, and I suspected he was the one. A few minutes later, my surveillance system picked up the sound of knocking at Audrey's door. I must admit, even a doormat has some wit about him. The adulterous couple in the room were startled by the knock on the door, and all sounds ceased immediately. Outside the room, the doormat first muttered something in Thai, then deliberately said in broken English, "Sorry guests, you left your things in the lobby. I bring them up for you." I heard someone get out of bed, and soon came the sound of the door opening. If these two hadn't been high on hallucinogens, they would have thought to ask what exactly had been left in the lobby. At the very least, they should have looked through the peephole to see if it was actually hotel staff. However, the two beasts didn't consider any of that. They opened the door straight away, letting the doormat in. I don't know what Jasper had in his backpack, but there must have been some tools in there, because I immediately heard Crispin let out a pig-like squeal, while Audrey made terrified ha-ha noises. Jasper roared at Crispin, "Shut up! Scream any louder and I'll bash your brains out." Hearing Jasper's threat, or perhaps due to the effects of the drugs, Crispin really did shut his mouth. I could only hear the dull thud of something heavy striking flesh, but no more yelling from him. I guess Jasper was wielding a baseball bat. After a round of vicious beating, Crispin was likely half dead. But what Jasper said next began to shock me. "Audrey, this bloke forced you into this, didn't he? I believe you. You must be pure and innocent." Audrey naturally went along with Jasper's words, choking up as she cried, "Oh Jasper, thank goodness you've come. This man has been forcing himself on me. I only gave in because I had no choice. I'm so glad you're here. I've been praying for you to come save me." They went on to pour out their hearts to each other, exchanging a long string of sappy words. However, while they were cooing at each other, I used a translation app to call the local police and report drug use at a certain room in a certain hotel. By the time the police arrived, I used the listening system to hear that Audrey had successfully brainwashed Jasper into believing she was still a virgin. If the police had been half an hour later, Jasper might have been convinced Audrey was a holy maiden descended from heaven. I didn't witness the scene when the police burst in, but when I returned to the hotel later, some of the cleaning staff told me what had happened. After the police rushed in, they first tried questioning in English, but no one in the room understood. Frustrated, they switched to broken Mandarin. A bearded officer asked, Who injured the man on the floor? The sycophant stepped forward, shielding Audrey Holbrook behind him. I hit him. He was trying to assault my girlfriend. It was self-defense. The bearded officer glanced at the bald, portly man covered in bruises but said nothing. He was about to take out his notebook to record the scene when he suddenly shouted, yelling in English. He had spotted the paraphernalia for drug use on the table, along with some unfinished psychedelics. Audrey and her admirer were quickly pinned to the bed. The police closed the door and interrogated them about what they were doing. Audrey tried to conceal their crimes while her companion kept protesting indignantly. After a severe beating, they still wouldn't confess. The man shouted, "I'm not a British citizen. Your laws don't apply to me. I should be subject to my own country's laws." At those words, the officers in the room broke into sinister smiles. Originally, they had only intended to pressure Audrey and her friend, confirm they weren't drug dealers, and then try to extract some money from them. But now that he was taking this approach, he was digging his own grave. As far as they knew, his home country had much stricter laws on psychedelic drug use than Britain did. They handcuffed Audrey and her companion and took them to the police station, planning to hand them over to their home country's authorities as requested. The hotel staff said that once at the station, Audrey and her friend immediately regretted their words, which earned them another beating. Meanwhile, the injured lover who had been sent to hospital by police had no money and was quickly kicked out. Later, when the police discovered it was actually Audrey and her lover who had been using the drugs, they dragged him out of a homeless shelter. To this day, the story of those three is still circulating around the hotel, a laughingstock known far and wide. As for me, I had my passport with me and a solid alibi. I'd been resting at the hotel across the street when it all happened. The police only spoke to me briefly as a formality and then left me alone. If it had been our local police, they might have investigated further to see if I had set up some kind of trap. But the quality of the British police is quite reassuring. Unless there's very obvious evidence, they hardly bother with anything. It's been a long time since this incident, and my life has returned to normal. That scoundrel Alistair Banister, due to his use of hallucinogenic drugs, was imprisoned in a Thai jail. With his severe injuries and a body already ravaged by drugs, he quickly perished inside. The devoted admirer, for severely injuring Alistair, was also given a heavy sentence. In prison, he took every opportunity to write love letters to Audrey Holbrook, truly the most devoted of admirers. Audrey Holbrook, my wife, no, I should say my ex-wife. Due to her involvement with drugs, she was sentenced to some time in Thailand, serving a few months in jail. However, Thailand's enforcement in this area isn't as strict, and given that her involvement was minimal, she was eventually released. But without a passport or any form of identification, she endured quite an ordeal in Thailand before returning to the UK. Upon her return, she still wanted to find me, putting on a pitiful act. I'm not sure if she had truly repented or if she was secretly plotting revenge. She would wait outside my house every day, rushing over as soon as she saw me, shouting, "Darling, please forgive me. I was tricked by others." She kept this up for over 2 weeks, until the neighbors became annoyed and advised me to move or have someone deal with Audrey. While I was still considering how to handle the situation, Audrey, seeing that I was no longer falling for her tricks, came up with a new ploy. She demanded a divorce, claiming she was entitled to half of our marital assets. Otherwise, she would die on my doorstep. I was furious and quickly gathered various evidence proving that not only had she committed adultery during our marriage, but that she had married me with the intention of murdering me. However, most of this evidence was never used in court. Shortly after returning to the UK, Audrey developed a mental illness triggered by a certain sexually transmitted disease and was permanently admitted to a psychiatric hospital. I simply filed for divorce in court, submitting only a portion of the evidence, and our marriage was terminated. As for me, I was fortunate enough to be clear of any strange diseases after a series of tests. So, I must say I can now forgive Audrey. If she can remain in the psychiatric hospital until the end of her days, truly experiencing those maddening times, my forgiveness might run even deeper. Oh, and all of this was thanks to a misdirected text from the lovesick fool. I had been utterly baffled before as to why the smitten bloke was so convinced I was Alistair Banister. I had scoured every possible app and courier service that might have leaked my phone number, but came up empty-handed. You see, Audrey Holbrook and I had gotten married in Manchester, and most of my personal information was registered there. The lovesick chap had always been in Liverpool. How on earth did he get hold of my mobile number? Even if it was through a courier, they use virtual numbers for deliveries nowadays, not my actual one. This puzzle remained unsolved until I started dating my new girlfriend, after which everything finally clicked into place. One day, my new girlfriend wanted to purchase some electronics from a particular shopping platform. She knew I had a card for that platform which offered discounts on purchases. So she transferred money to me via WhatsApp and asked me to buy the items and have them shipped to her. There wasn't much balance left on the card, just a few quid, but it was a special edition card in collaboration with an IP I fancied. My girlfriend quite liked it too, so I sent her the card along with the items. After receiving the card, she probably bought some discounted drinks or something similar, using up the remaining balance but keeping the card itself. A few days later, I unexpectedly received a phone call. The person on the other end asked, "Good day, Mr. Chettle. You purchased a beverage from our store a few days ago. We'd like to conduct a follow-up survey, after which you'll receive some small gifts. Do you have a moment?" Upon receiving this call, I broke out in a cold sweat. I had always assumed these shopping cards were for anonymous purchases. Afterwards, I asked a mate to look into it for me. Sure enough, these shopping cards are linked to phone numbers. They're not anonymous at all. Thinking back, I must have carelessly given one of these shopping cards to Audrey Holbrook, which she then used for shopping. The unused card was later discovered by the lovesick fool. This bloke must have used the shopping card to eventually obtain my phone number. Come to think of it, he was quite clever, using a mere shopping card to track down the imaginary rival in his fantasies. In a way, I should be grateful to him. Thanks to his actions, I managed to escape the clutches of that adulterous pair. It's a shame, really. If he hadn't been so pathetically lovesick, he might have actually been a decent chap.